Doris for that.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Hutchinson City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 24th, 2018. Approve the council agenda and any agenda additions or corrections.
Mayor and council, we have one item asking you to consider to add. You can do it under new business. You can do it 18.5, but it's a food truck license. Kind of got lost in the shuffle, so we want to make sure we got it approved tonight. So.
I'll make a motion to approve that change.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Invocation from Hope Family Church. Good evening.
Good evening. I am Tim Vanden Langenberg, pastor of Hope Family Church, and I walked in right at the end of the presentation where the heading said third-class cities. And I know there was no slight intended, and I walked in on the end of it, but we are not a third-class city, except in however that was being used. In fiduciary language. I just want to tell you and encourage you that you make living here worth it. You really do. And the very end of the 23rd Psalm says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." And so when I see things like that, I know you need more wisdom, not less. You need everything that you can muster and everything that can come to you from above. And so I pray, Lord, wisdom. Lord, give us wisdom, give us grace, give us mercy, give us help. For we need everything you can pour into us. We thank you and pray blessing in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next to the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Nice job.
Recognition of gifts, donations, and community service to the city. Does anybody have anything?
Just wanted to pass on a compliment. 3M had their annual family picnic on Saturday, and I guess the PD and fire department both had some of the new equipment there. And I know John Arlt saw me, who's in charge of safety at 3M, and just said he really appreciated that. And people thought it was pretty interesting seeing some of that. Had the new rig for the PD, which I thought was pretty impressive. So,
I don't think I've seen it yet.
yeah, that's what I thought. We should have that out here sometime. Anyway, just wanted to pass that on.
Mary.
That was appreciated.
John?
Just wanted to know, Roger Carson had passed away. Give it on the board, historical society.
And I also wanted to thank the fire department because they were at the library with their employees and their staff showing them fire training. And it was mentioned at our meeting, and they said they were very impressed and they got to ask questions. I think the police department was there. You know, they gave them tips on security and talked to them about those things, and the fire department was there. So they very much appreciated that, and they said that at their meeting.
Both groups do a lot of community outreach. So.
Absolutely.
Another sad note, George Field, our retired fire marshal, passed away too. So, but on the upbeat, I had Tammy stop by from the Elks, and we had a TV crew out here today at noon to the Elks Park. So they were doing a story on it, so it should be on the news tonight, so.
What channel was that?
Channel 5, I believe. Right? Hopefully that's right. I think that's what she said, so. Anything else? All right, public comment, citizens addressing the council. All right, approval of minutes. We have the regular meeting minutes of July 10th, 2018, the workshop of July 10th, 2018, and a special meeting with the Hutchinson Utilities Commission on June 27th, 2018.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by John, second by Mary to approve.
Second by Chad.
Or Chad, sorry. Well, Mary kind of nodded, sorry. I think I've been sitting by Mark too long here. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Consent agenda, we have quite a few here, so A is consideration for approval of resolution number 14919, resolution regarding the support of a job creation fund application on behalf of Warrior Manufacturing. B is consideration for approval of resolution number 14920, resolution calling for a public hearing by the City Council on August 28, 2018 at 6 p.m. on the proposed adoption of a modification to the development program for Development District Number 4 and the proposed establishment of tax increment financing district number 4-20 therein, and adoption of a tax increment financing plan therefore as it relates to Warrior Manufacturing. C is consideration for approval of resolution number 14921, resolution transferring from Community Improvement Fund to the General Fund. D is consideration for approval of reinvestment agreement with Hutchinson Technology Incorporated. E is consideration for approval of the annual caterers permit for J&L Schlegel Enterprises. 2. F is consideration for approval of Truck Highway 15 Main Street and 2nd Avenue North to 5th Avenue South intersection control evaluation report. G is consideration for approval of reaffirmation of Hutchinson data practices policy. H is consideration for approval of authorizing Crow River wineries to dispense wine at the Arts and Crafts Festival. I is consideration for approval of a street closure for Homes Party in the Park event on July 28th, 2018. J is appointment of Matt Cheney to the Hutchinson Utilities Commission to December of 2022. K is consideration for approval of items for City Alley number 17 improvements project, letting number 7, project number 18-07. Under there's resolution number 14923, resolution declaring costs to be assessed and ordering preparation of proposed assessment. And resolution number 14924, resolution for hearing on proposed assessment. And L is claims appropriation and contract payments, register A. Is there anything anybody wants pulled off?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have consent agenda number 2, claims and appropriation contract payments, register B. Chad has the check on there, so
I will abstain.
I'll make a motion to approve
second.
with
Mo-
Chad, with Chad abstaining.
Motion by Mary, second by Steve, with Chad abstaining. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We do have a public hearing at 6 p.m., so with our guests here, I think we'll just jump ahead and do the 16 summary review and approve the 2017 audit comprehensive annual finance report.
Thank you, Council Mayor. Before I introduce Kyle Myers, I just wanted to take one quick minute to go over a few highlights from 2017. Other than the normal services we perform here through the city, we did do some other things as well, including the water park, finished the construction and opened for operations in 17. We completed the construction of the EDA Enterprise Center, opened that up for business in December. We started the police body camera program, and that started with a generous donation from a private company. And then Hutch Utilities issued bonds in excess of $16 million for 2 new engines. And then we started Sunday Liquor in July of last year. So it was a lot going on last year. Our financials, as Kyle will discuss here in a minute, were very positive. Very happy with the results, and I just wanted to point out that the audit report is already on the city website if anybody wants to review it, and it'll be in the Hutch Leader tomorrow. Summary financials will be published tomorrow. A hard copy can be found at the public library and then also here at City Center. And if anyone has any questions, they can certainly contact me and I can help them out.
It's a really good document if you're struggling to sleep in that.
It is. 250 pages of interesting facts and numbers. But before I turn it over to Kyle Myers here, I just wanted to thank the auditors for all they do in compiling this document, my finance staff, and especially Justin Jurgensen, who had a major part in this year's audit and last few years as well. So with that said, I'll turn it over to Kyle Myers, partner with Abdo, Ike & Myers.
Thanks, Andy. I would also like to thank my audit manager, Lane Kockelman, who helped present at the workshop previous to this meeting where we went over a lot of the details in the 2017 audit. I'm here tonight in the council meeting to just go over a brief summary of what we discussed at the meeting. Audit opinion was an unmodified, clean opinion. There were no findings noted during the audit. We do test areas with Minnesota statutes such as disbursements, debt, contracting and bidding, etc., and also internal control over financial reporting. And we also test provisions of laws, contracts, grant agreements, etc., with federal and state grants. There were no new standards implemented during 2017. We did go over some that were going to come down the road in 2018 and beyond. In addition, the city has received a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association now for 21 consecutive years, so that indicates that the city is following governmental reporting standards. Some of the highlights, as far as the financial highlights, the city's net position increased about $5.1 million compared to $3.1 million in the previous year. The city had about $2.6 million in capital grants and contributions, and that really just goes to the bottom line of the city. Also, the enterprise funds, such as your water, sewer, utility funds, contributed about $3.1 million of that $5.1 million. The general funds, which is the chief operating fund of the city, had a fund balance increase of $59,000. As we went over in the budget, you budgeted a $500,000 decrease, so that's a favorable variance of in excess of $500,000. And your fund balance at the end of the year is at 52.3%. And what's recommended, you're above that recommended range of 35 to 50% and above the city's policy of 40%. And as indicated, except for a few minor exceptions, there was fund balances were healthy. There were a few minor deficits due to timing. such as your tax increment dollars, which you spend the dollars up front and then get the tax increment dollars in at a later point to pay for those expenditures. Your debt service requirements were steadily decreasing over the next 10 years from a high of about 2.9 million in 2018 down to about 900,000. So that gives you the capacity to borrow and do infrastructure improvements within the city to keep it at a fairly level pace. Your capital project funds used up approximately $2.8 million, as Andy referred to, for your aquatic center. That was spent on your fund balance by that amount. But on a positive note, you still have in excess of $2 million in your capital funds for future improvements in the capital arena. With regard to your enterprise funds, we went over each of your enterprise funds, and they had positive cash flow, healthy cash balances for future capital replacements. So you're doing well in those funds as well. So overall, pretty good picture with your financial operations. Again, I want to thank the city staff for their participation, as Andy had indicated there too, with the preparation of the audit. Andy and Justin were integral in getting all the work papers ready, all the financial information, all the audit adjustments at the end of the year. So they do a great job in preparing that for our auditing. So I thank them. Any questions?
So you're probably aware that we passed a financial management plan this year. Is that right? It wasn't reflected here, but from your standpoint, that was a good thing to do. That's
a good thing. In fact, we encourage cities to have like a 5-year future plan for what are your capital needs, what are your operational needs over a 5-year period, and you can use that as a budgeting tool as well. And
we've been doing that obviously for quite a while.
It's more or less a compilation of all our policies into one document when we get the finances.
Okay.
And so generally speaking, the city is financially healthy.
Yes.
And well managed.
Yep.
Yes, definitely.
Not a third class city, right? First class management and a third class city.
Very good checkup.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
We should have action to officially accept that.
Make a motion to accept the 2017 audit.
I'll second.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to accept the audit. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
And I'll just add this, I jokingly made a comment on it, but I would encourage the public to access that through our website. It's interesting what I hear out in public, and all the data, all the facts are right there for anyone to take a look at and research. And obviously, they have questions, staff's available to answer those questions as well.
It really is quite a document, wealth of information.
Yep, and we'll add we did it last year, we'll do it again this year. We'll add a link to our Facebook page for people to take a look at it. So.
We got a little time here, so let's skip ahead and do the Hutchinson Center for the Arts annual update.
I think so. Well, I'll start with, I'm Lisa Berg, Executive Director with the Hutchinson Center for the Arts. I'm here tonight just to extend our gratitude for the city's ongoing funding for arts and to give a little update. I can talk about the slide. So
everyone does have a copy of her presentation.
Yeah, so the first thing, I'll see how far I get without the slides as of memory, but I also like to acknowledge our partner groups. They do a lot of work for the city in terms of arts entertainment, and I know that you guys all got a copy of that arts impact study that was done through Minnesota Citizens for the Arts. And so here were our 2017 partners. We have a new partner group in the hopper. I can't say who it is yet, but they're pending board approval, and I think that'll be pretty exciting. So these are a lot of great groups doing a lot of work, a lot of volunteer groups here. And again, I just want to stress the things like River Song that just happened, things like the Pottery Fest that's going to happen, bring a lot of tourism into the city. And then when you think about all the other concerts and performing, there's a lot of people coming to Hutchinson for the arts. Hold on, let me get it to the, there you go. Then you don't have to see everything. An exciting thing that happened to us earlier in the year, we got a major gift from the McKnight Foundation, 2-year grant award. One of the factors, there's a couple of factors how they awarded this to us, was our really unique collaborative system. All of our partner groups working really hard to advocate and promote arts opportunities, not only for audiences, but also for artists and makers. And then the city funding was pretty key for the McKnight Foundation to know that the city supported the institution, that gave them the, the little nudge to say, hey, this is a group that's being supported and the city appreciates it. So again, thank you for your gift because it spurred some support from the McKnight Foundation. Another new thing we tried this year was another fundraiser, and we partnered with local theater talent to provide Always Patsy Cline. So after our expenses, we got almost $7,000 to benefit our programs. This was a really neat project because not only did it provide a really exciting entertainment opportunity for local residents and regional people that came in, but it also gave a new opportunity for actors and performers to kind of step up a little out of their comfort zone, out of what traditionally happens, give them a new opportunity. It was successful. I think we're going to continue to try to figure out how to provide things like this. I have a couple new projects I want to talk about with you guys. The Kid Art Drop-In Days. We started this last year. It was renewed with funding from the Swift Foundation this year. And what it provides is a free opportunity for children 3 to 5 to come in with a parent, caregiver, to provide art projects and experiences in connection with our exhibits. This is sort of what the top layer looks like, but really it's with Swift, we're trying to bridge the opportunity gap through the arts. And so this also provides an opportunity to socialize, to meet connections, to have friends, to lift yourself out of poverty. It's pretty helpful to have a friend. So, and a community member. So that's what this is part, where the kids can socialize, and not only the kids, but the parents. And so we do have some daycare groups coming in. Your son's group comes in, not every time, but pretty good. I would say 90% they're there, but then there's independent families that are coming in. The other thing we're able to provide is travel vouchers, tokens for families that don't have transportation or have difficulty with transportation to get them to the center to access this program. So it's growing. People are learning more about it. Every month we have more and more people. The kids get a good chance to engage with the exhibit.
So Lisa, how many people, how many children and adults are involved with that program right now?
Right, you know, it's drop-in. We just ask people that will say, hey, tell us if you're coming. But it can vary from 5 kids to 20 kids. So it's just 2-hour block once a month. And so we never really know. But the max we've had at a time is I think 20 or 25. On colder days, we've had 5 kids. But we continue to run it, and I think we'll continue to see growth in it. It's exciting. I think it's an exciting program. I personally really like it. And I'm seeing how kids are developing friendships. And so what's exciting about that is the kids certainly develop the friendships, but so do the parents. And that's what we're trying to get, is we're trying to get everybody connected, building community. This spring, we got a new grant from the Birch Foundation, and we're partnering with Woodstone. This is the pilot program. Just last week, we did the first session, and we did that. On the picture over there is artist Heidi Joe. She came in and did a painting workshop. We did one in the morning for memory care patients, and then one in the afternoon for the resident suites. And it was a pretty amazing experience. And so, again, it's that idea that arts makes your life richer, makes yourself happier, makes your a fuller life. So this, I'm sure you guys all know him, and I feel bad. I'm forgetting his name. He's a famous person in Hutch, but now he's in the memory care suite, and he had a great time painting. We couldn't get him away. We let him come to the afternoon session, and he is, again, in memory care. And this was his painting. He called it Confusion. So I thought that was pretty poignant, considering he's battling memory issues. We continue to offer our adult education and kids workshops. This week, we're kind of wrapping up our last summer studio, and they're making soft sculptures. So come August 2nd, the new thing we added this year for our summer studio is a pop-up art exhibit. So all the kids that made something during summer studio sessions, August 2nd, 5 to 6:30, they're all going to have their work on display. So I think that's a fun thing for them to be able to connect and be proud of their work. Adult classes, we did a drawing class, we've done a stained glass class, and about a month ago we did a barn quilt painting class, which was a big crowd there. I think there was like 20 people. So we're going to keep working on those. We have one coming up for the mandala painting, and I know that we did a stained glass, and we'll do another stained glass. I think we did it like around December, so I think we'll try that again because it's an opportunity to make some Christmas gifts. So we keep trying those adult classes out. We get people to come when we schedule them right. So that's the thing we always work with. We got to figure out, summer is hard, but we'll get them in there. I wanted to just give you an idea of what a year looks like at the Art Center. That building is really being used. And so this is what happens, and this is where our events at the Art Center, not including, this excludes all our private rentals. So as an income stream, we have facility rental program, and it varies on the time of the year. When we have one, we can have up to 4 or 5. So basically, easily an event a week. And this doesn't include meetings that our partner groups might have, but this is everything that we did last year, for the most part. So the building is getting used. There's a lot of variety of programming. We're actually, I think we all know that it's getting small, right? So there's lots of times where I can't do a facility rental because there's a partner group using it, someone else is renting. There's lots of times where I have to say no to people. So it's good and bad, right? One thing that's happened too recently is the local community access channel has started to come down and videotape the artist reception openings. We also do a gallery talk, and that rebroadcast onto their channel. That's pretty nice. We like that. I know we talked about this last year, and I always want to talk about it again, is that I would say that where we're seeing the most out of Hutch tourism coming in is for the exhibits. They sign the guest book. And once again, people are coming to Hutch for the arts. They're coming for the festivals. They're coming to the Art Center to see the exhibits. And when they come for the arts, they're not just in and out. If they come to the Art Center, they're going to go up to Clay Coyote. They're going to go to dinner. They're going to have lunch. We want to continue to keep them here longer. So we are definitely on board with arts tourism and arts impact economically. Here we are with the visual arts exhibition series. We're winding down, but we are right, and we're going to put up Stephanie Frey. She's a illustrator. So come down, there's lots of stuff to see. The June show is really beautiful. And 2019 exhibition has been set. You're going to like that too.
Living history. What does that, living history?
Living history, she's an illustrator, and she's a freelance illustrator. And so she makes illustrations, cartoons, comics, graphics about her day-to-day life. They're pretty stunning. So that is the update. And then I'll have to say that if you've noticed on Facebook or just driving by, Dr. Mock has been making some pretty nice improvements to the building in terms of will help our efficiency in terms of utilities. So the sign went back up about an hour ago. So the new siding is up with insulation, and that's it. Any questions? Thank you again.
Thanks for the update.
Thank you.
Anything new planned for next year outside of all the great stuff you're doing?
We're going to keep with the program now. I'll go back to my Steve. I think the exciting part is the points for the youth and the seniors, and we really want to try to figure out how to. My personal issue as a director is how do I build community? How do I build empathy? And how do I use the arts to do that? So that's why we're doing all these programs to kind of reach into all the funnels of the community. So obviously, people that aren't feeling part of the community, I would hope that the Art Center would be the vessel that helps them be part of it.
Mentioned transportation vouchers,
Yep. And so that helps, like with Summer Studio, the older kids, sometimes, the younger kids seem to have easier time getting there for the most part, but sometimes we'll give tokens if they're working through a social worker. But sometimes the teenagers, mom and dad will let them be a little more independent. We'll make sure they get tokens. So we don't want anyone to not be able to participate because of a vehicle, right? So I give those to family members too, so if they want to come to the Art Kid drop-ins, but it's really hard if you don't have a reliable vehicle. That really narrows your opportunities to engage with the community and be involved. So that's what those tokens are for. Get them plugged in.
That's a nice little program that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing, assessment hearing for Century Avenue Southeast Reconstruction Project, letting number 1, project number 18-1. And under there we have resolution number 14925, resolution adopting assessments. Evening, Ken.
Evening, Mayor and Council. There we go. All right, letting number 1, Century Avenue Southeast Reconstruction. Like is noted on the board action form within your packet, this is only the approval of the assessment roll, basically. You might recall, I'm sure you do recall, the special meeting on July 2nd where we awarded this project to R&R Excavating in the city of Hutchinson here. So R&R is up and working. Things are going pretty well out there. They're fighting through a little bit of weather last week or so, but a little wet, but we're making progress. And with that, the bid tabulation is within your packet. Unless council has any questions on the bids, I know we'll review those on the 2nd. We've done that, and it's been awarded. And otherwise, yeah, the assessment roll is within the packet. Yeah, we've had a fair amount of process with respect to this project in developing the costs, the assessments, the approach to the assessments. There's a couple of unique property owners out there, obviously along this section of Century Avenue, Ridgewater College and Hutchinson Health. They're both on board with what they are being assessed. Ridgewater did have a standalone agreement that came to council some months ago. And then Hutchinson Health, basically we have some water main work that we've brought into this project to provide them a redundant water service, which they did not have before. So this is I think a very worthwhile improvement that they're being assessed in full. And they do have, both the college and the hospital have the street frontage assessment, no different than the residential properties, basically west or east of those properties all the way to Jefferson Street. So with that, like I mentioned, the roll is in the packet. Assessment approach is similar to past years where we've prorated the rate based on the width. And yeah, we heard a little bit, answered a few questions a number of months ago with respect to assessments on a few corner lots out there. There's some unique properties, dimension-wise, shape-wise along that street, and we believe that those comments, thoughts have been fully addressed, and now we look forward to construction. And based on our starting date, like we discussed back on July 2nd when we awarded the project, we still anticipate the project being substantially completed by the end of the year, and I would even say, hopefully if weather cooperates, nearly final completed, and come early November, and we'll have a little bit of cleanup work and the likes, warranty work, more than likely in the spring next year. And that's it, unless there's any questions, thoughts.
Open it up for public comment. Just please come forward, state your name and address.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by John, second by Mary to close the public hearing. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Motion to,
The one resolution is
the-
revised. We had to change a date from 2018 to 2019. That has been passed out to you this evening.
Make,
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 14/9/25 as revised on your handout.
I'll second that.
motion by John, second by Steve. Approve resolution number 14925. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Second public hearing?
Next one, yeah. I can introduce it, yeah. Levy number 4, project 18-04. This is our 2018 pavement management program project, which we developed and delivered in pretty short order in the recent months here. Just a refresher, what we're looking at is 3 segments of roadway up in the northwest quadrant of the community. We have 11th Avenue northeast in between Elm Street, and then to the east to Maple. Then we have Northwoods from Highway 15 on the west end, also to Maple on the east end. And then we have Spruce Street from Northwoods on the north end down to College Avenue on the south end. So this is cleaning up some projects that we didn't address a number of years ago, and probably 5, 6, 7 years ago when we addressed a lot of these roadways up in this area of town. There are some utility needs on 11th Avenue and Spruce Street. That's why we basically put those into a holding pattern and didn't address those a number of years ago, and kind of had them basically in a minimal maintenance approach since then. So the time has come. We'd like to address these roadways. Northwoods, the condition index, and I think this is a nuance in our system, the 70 that's showing up on this map, this drawing. But I think that block is comparable to the blocks immediately adjacent to it. Thus, we want to address Northwoods Avenue at this point in time. We did bid Northwoods Avenue as an alternate bid. Overall, what's indicated on the bid tabulation in your packet, we believe we did receive a favorable bid. And what's showing here is our engineer's estimate, and this is the apparent low bid from William Mueller's and Sons. And yeah, it's slightly above our bid. I think it came to...
Actually, we didn't get that. That was one of the things missing in the packet, was the bid document.
Tabulation wasn't in there?
Right.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that.
We had the Century one and
All right.
doubled up.
Yeah, well, this is the bid tabulation. Yeah, I think the bids were about 8% above, if I recall doing the math. That's what the alternate number 1 included. And yeah, you can see in comparison, there were 4 bids. The apparent low in comparison to the next bid, there was a fairly substantial jump there, about $170,000 when the alternate bid is included with the base bid. So with that, we recommend awarding to William Mueller and Sons of Hamburg, Minnesota. Assessment notices have been provided to the adjacent properties. Some of the people here tonight are obviously property owners on this letting, I believe. And like we discussed a couple of meetings ago, we revised the assessment rate. So actually, the notice that the property owners received reflected a lower assessment rate than what was communicated to them a number of months ago. And yeah, with that, we recommend award. We recommend approval of the associated assessment roll for the project. And we're looking forward to getting started. Obviously, we're coming up against the end of July, which means we basically have 3 months to complete this project: August, September, October. And there's a fair amount of utility work, like I indicated, within 11th and Spruce. So, and there's some tree cover up there, which can, if we do get wet weather with deep utility work and shade, it can be a bad combination come fall. But we're hoping for the best, and we've given the contractor that full, in essence, 12-week window to get the job done. We haven't restricted them on how they can approach the project, and we're just hoping for the best, and would like to get this job done yet this fall.
Communicate with the school district as far as busing and...
Yep, we always do. Yeah, so obviously we're not going to be within the summer window here, so yeah, we'll communicate as school approaches. They are aware of the project. You know, it's never a given that we're going to be able to deliver all our projects within, you know, basically the second week of June to Labor Day. I think that's unrealistic, but we do want to stay away from the major collector streets and the likes as much as possible outside of outside of summer months. So similar to what we're requesting or we specified on the bridge project, where we've asked the contractor in essence to complete the work second week of June to Labor Day. So I think other than Northwoods, they might have to change up some bus routes there, and due to the length, 4-block length of that stretch of roadway, that might impact some routes, but I think the other ones won't be too bad where children will be able to go to either end of the block and get on the bus.
Anything else for Kent? Open it up for public comment. This name and address, please.
Todd Vetter, 725 Spruce Street. Couple of questions. Just a clarification on Spruce Street, from what I understand from the last meetings, is that it's not going to be widened or anything, right?
Nope. Be the existing width.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just noticed they put up some survey sticks or something about 6-8 feet off the curb today.
Yeah, they're offset, so that doesn't reflect the new location of a service or the curb line itself.
Okay.
There's an offset.
What's the potential start date?
Potential start date is really up to the contractor. Awarded this evening. We do have a pre-construction meeting scheduled on this front this coming Friday. And yeah, it'll be at the whim of the contractor after that point. They haven't indicated yet, so.
Just my worry is this late in the year, we're going to be left with incomplete project for the winter, and that would be bad.
I agree, and like I mentioned, we're at the whim of the weather, and we're going to do everything we can to make it happen. We think it's a reasonable expectation to deliver this project over a 3-month time frame.
All right, thank you.
Hey, I'm new to this, but I have complaints.
Name and address, please.
Donna Harley, 830 Spruce Street.
Thank you.
I just moved here from Washington State. I never got a notice about any of this, and $73.87 and 50 cents is an awful lot to ask of anybody in 3 months that just purchased a home to come up with by November 18th.
That isn't correct.
That's what I have.
And we can explain the terms, and yeah, obviously, I'm not exactly sure when.
It was mailed July 9th.
Yep, and that's the notice for this meeting this
Okay.
evening. There were prior notice. I'm not
I never got
exactly
one.
sure when you acquired the home.
June 7th.
June 7th? Yeah, so you would have been after the initial public hearing. So, yeah, that's
But
why.
either way, you can't, I mean, $73.87 is still a lot to come up with for somebody that is a widow and living on fixed income.
Yeah.
Ma'am, can we explain the process for you?
Please, because this is.
Sure. So there was a public hearing notice prior to you purchasing the home. The seller should have notified you of that. And what happens is that you have the option to pay that off before the end of the year, and if you don't or you can't, then it becomes a 10-year assessment against your property.
With interest added on.
With interest added on.
And why is there
just-
interest added on?
Yeah, I'll explain the rest of the process to you. You had noted that you're on fixed income. There are options to defer that if you meet
With accrued interest.
if you meet the guidelines that are established by that. Interest is added onto it because the city has to pay interest on bonds to help pay for the project, and then that's also a policy, obviously, the decision for the city council.
Well, I put down furniture for 6 years interest-free. Why do you have to, so we're paying for this 3 times. We have to pay the $73.87.50, and then you're gonna add interest. If, unfortunate for some of us, we cannot pay it by the deadline. And then our property taxes are gonna go up along with our house payment. On something that, from every neighbor I talk to, for at least 10 of them, do not want this. We don't need street lights. We don't need this. There's at least 5 of them I know that is gonna be a major, major hardship, and they're gonna just say, well, they're not here tonight because most of them can't drive. But they're gonna have a problem. And they're just gonna just say, well, whatever, their property taxes are gonna increase, their house payment is gonna increase, and they can't pay it until finally they just walk away. That's 5 people I know of that could just walk away from their property, all because you guys decide you wanna do this right now.
Well, it's not, we didn't decide we want to do it right now. This has been in the plan for at least our 5-year capital plan. And I will say we did have a public hearing, and I don't believe those comments were expressed at that public hearing by those
Probably
residents.
wasn't here at the public hearing because I didn't know about it. I didn't even know about this until 3 hours ago. Because I never got no notice at all in the mail or otherwise, and then now all of a sudden.
Where did you get that notice from?
I got it from a neighbor who just happened to come over today, and we started talking. And she says, I don't know how I'm gonna pay this. And I said, what? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And she gave me this letter, and I said, can I have this letter? Because I never got one.
All I can say is that the letters were sent out certified, or not certified, but they were sent out to the addresses affected by the.
Notices are sent out to the record owner of the property, and there might have been some exchange of paperwork that might not have caught up with. That's not the city's responsibility. Also, notice is published in the paper as required by law. And that's what.
Well, what if you don't get this, whatever you call leader?
Yep. You might not get it. But the law says we have to publish it. The law deems it has to be sufficient notice, so that's what we do.
And so it's all right that 10 people maybe on Spruce Street just kind of just walks away from their house. That's okay.
That's the purpose for the public hearing. That's the purpose for this hearing
Well, a lot of them
tonight.
can't drive.
Well, there's other options. They can send a letter, they can.
Do they know
phone
that?
call. Well, where's the little responsibility on their part?
Well, yeah, if you know.
They got the letter. I think it talks about.
Well, they could be like me and didn't even get a letter.
Well,
I had no idea this was going to happen.
I don't know that, and as it was explained,
And I don't understand the interest rate. In Washington State, you don't do that. You don't add. You charge $73.87 and then you charge interest on that. You think people have this money just lying around? How do you expect them to pay for it, is what I'm asking.
the
Well, I
city's
think
paying.
we're all homeowners in town here, and we have the same, we end up
Maybe you
doing the
make
same.
more than most of the people on Spruce Street.
Well,
And there's options available as I
there's
mentioned.
options
With interest.
available.
Referral, yes.
With interest, that could go up as high as 7%.
Last couple of years, we haven't had anything over 3.5% full.
Yeah, I think we bonded at 2.35% last year.
Yeah, but things are going up according to the economy.
Yeah.
It's just gonna keep going up and up.
It doesn't change the interest rate. Once we set our bond, that interest rate stays the same for the
2.35%.
period of the loan.
So I can't pay this amount. There's no way I can come up with this money. So what do I do? What are my options?
You
Over 10 years.
you defer it for the 10.
With accruing interest for 10 years. Well, that's
what-
great.
What would happen over 10 years, because personally, right now, I'm paying off the same exact thing on my house. And my 10-year, my payment, it was about $6,000 over 10 years. So what it did is it adds about $600 to $700 a year to my property taxes.
Sure.
So we
Fixed income, you can
pay
just,
property taxes twice a year, so
yeah.
twice a year we pay approximately an extra $350 in property taxes.
So somebody on fixed income, that 350 is a lot when you think of medication and your property taxes go up and.
But like Matt had said, and like Gary had said, there are ways, if you meet the income criteria.
Which is probably $10,000.
I'm not sure what the income criteria is, but you can have that assessment deferred so that you don't have to pay it.
I don't, but if I sell my house and decide to get out of this great state of Minnesota and back to a better state,
Yeah, then
I would have to pay for it with all that accrued interest.
not necessarily, that's part of the purchase agreement.
But nobody's gonna buy a house with that on there.
Oh, ma'am,
If you did, you'd be silly.
ma'am, this has been going on for decades, so this isn't anything new. So people are used to it and.
They just accept it.
What?
This is a fortune.
I can understand the 7387. I have no problem with that. I don't understand the interest. And I don't understand, okay, my property taxes are gonna go up, and my house payment is gonna go up.
Your house payment.
Well, sure, your property taxes go up, your house payment's gonna go up because your property and the insurance, come on, I'm not born yesterday. 7387 would be fine, but adding, this is insult to injury as far as I'm concerned. And I don't see how you guys can allow it, really. It's just beyond me.
Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
It's just bullshit.
Motion to close.
Hi, Tammy Belkey, 805 Spruce. I have a question about the loan. Is it possible if you, like, I know you can pay a little bit in the beginning if you want to. Is it possible to pay more, like, say, on year 5?
You can pay it off. You can pay it off at any time.
You can pay it off, but I mean, can you just, like, say if you would be paying $1,000 a month, or a year, could you pay, like, say, $2,000 in 1 year?
Yeah.
Would that-
There's no prepayment penalties, and you know, we have some people that may have assessment for 2 or 3 years. They get to year 3 or 4, and they say, "I've got the money available. I'm just gonna pay that off."
Sure.
That's very well a possibility or an option. And you know, because we certify the assessment with the county, and so I know there's options where you can come into the city and pay off the portion.
Yeah, you'll get a final assessment notice this fall. You'll have 30 days to make a partial payment before being sent to the county during your tax rolls.
Well, I'm just thinking, like, over the next 10 years, something may change and I may
Yeah.
make more money.
Yep.
And I'm just thinking that, like I said, maybe in year 5, I could pay a little more. I wouldn't be able to pay it off, but I could maybe pay a little more.
Yeah, once it's certified to the county, there's a P&I schedule that's assigned to it. And it's just allocated over the 10-year term.
Sure. Great.
And it's 2.35% approximately, and then you're paying 3.35%.
Yeah,
We have a finance charge.
We haven't got our bonding ready.
Yeah, we don't have a bonding.
I just want to clarify, you can make a partial payment in year 1 before it gets certified, but once it gets certified to the county, your only option is to either pay the installments as is or pay it off in total.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Okay, good, thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
And then also, I know you talked the last time about Spruce because it's, it's like a 2-block span. I live right in the middle.
Yeah.
that span. And
Yeah,
I was
it's a
wondering,
lot.
is it going to be possible to get to drive on the road at any point? Or are we looking at probably at least 2 months where you can't get?
No, I wouldn't say 2 months. You're probably looking at a month, or less than a month of weather cooperates of deep utility work.
Okay.
So that'll proceed from one end of the block to the other.
Okay.
So,
All right,
yeah, so then
the
you
whole
could-
thing is completely out.
yeah, so it's not like you're in front of your house, it'll be dug up for a full month.
Mhm.
But depending on how they administer the work will determine how you could conceivably, which direction you can get to your property.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. Motion by Chad, second by John, to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. We have resolution number 14926, resolution adopting assessments, and resolution number 14927, resolution accepting bid and awarding contract.
The one is revised again.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve both resolutions with the revision.
I'll second that.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary, to approve both resolutions. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Review of water and sewer rate study, professional service agreement with SEH Incorporated.
Yes, like we've been talking about for some time now, I believe the time has come to administer water and wastewater sewer, we're calling it in this case, rate study. We've identified a consultant that's done a fair number of these studies in our region. They have actually completed a major effort down in the city of Mankato. And yeah, with that, I laid out a few of the, I guess, the critical items, the reasoning to administer this study at this point in time. And it's been a number of years. Obviously, we do have capital needs that are evolving as our plants get older. You know, our water plant isn't, I think it's beyond the honeymoon period. You know, it was implemented and brought online in 2006, so we're already 12 years, believe it or not, into the life cycle. That facility on the wastewater front, we have we maintain the old oxidation ditch clarifier system that was built in the mid-80s when we added the membrane bioreactor system back in 2008, and that's already been 10 years, and we just recently replaced the membranes. And then out on our collection and distribution systems, we have needs that you know, we've avoided, I guess, for many years during the recession period. Also, we have a couple of somewhat moving targets in front of us. We need to address the state statute that we implement conservation rates as defined by the DNR on the waterfront. And also we're going through the reissuance of our wastewater effluent permit with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency on the wastewater front, and we're just starting conversations with them what the new limits might be and what might be asked of us to achieve. And that's just starting. And I guess the biggest thing is, you know, we haven't adjusted rates since 2011. We haven't done a rate study since well before the water plant was constructed in 06. I believe that rate study was dated 2003. And then we did a rate study on the wastewater sewer front shortly before the MBR plant was built in 2008. Rates were stepped up just prior to those projects and shortly thereafter. Obviously 06 on the water side, 08 on the wastewater side, and then come 2011 rates went into a holding pattern when the sales tax, local sales tax was put in place. Thankfully that has helped us greatly as far as the debt service on both those plant additions. And, looking forward, that sales tax is set to sunset in 2026, which a few years ago, it seemed like a long ways away. Now it doesn't seem so long. So that's another thing we have to account for is the loss of that revenue stream in the not too distant future.
So upgrades are probably phosphorus and chloride?
No, we are going to avoid a chloride limit, is what we're hearing at this point. But phosphorus will be, or more than likely will be, the issue for us.
It was interesting, last week I had a conversation with a professor from UNLV who said this is exactly what she does. So she was impressed that we had the MBR number.
Yeah, no, I mean, thankfully we have that technology already in place, albeit that doesn't help us with the old side of the plant. And but we're going to be doing everything we can, I guess, working with the PCA to establish reasonable limits, and there'll be more to be said on that front and council's involvement in the coming months as we learn more of what's being asked of us.
I really don't see the need to do this now. One thing is, when the sales tax discussion was going on, we talked about that we would not raise rates during that time. I know that isn't a given, obviously, but you mentioned the MPCA. Well, we don't even know what that's going to be yet, so I think we're ahead of the game on that. The current facilities, when you look at the CIP plan, everything's manageable within the funding that we have now. I know we talked about the water meters, and then maybe there's a fixed fee to pay for them during a temporary period, so there's an avenue for that. The utility fund reserve balances, we just had the audit, and there really aren't any issues with that. The sales tax, that isn't an issue either, because that's going right for the debt. And when the debt goes away, well, that's when the sales tax goes away. So it's totally separate from all the other expenses that are out there. So again, I don't see the need to do this now. Maybe in a few years, we just keep monitoring the situation, and maybe later on, it will be. We'll see it now.
I think one of the big things, and Mr. Reed's still here, and Andy and I have had conversations for a long time on this front, and is the use volumes we've been seeing, and the lack of surcharges we're seeing on the wastewater side, and the recession level volumes, I'll call it, on the water side. They've never come back, and actually what we're seeing this year is even more concerning halfway through the year here in 2018, where our use is going. And that obviously impacts our revenue stream on both the water and wastewater fronts. And yeah, I know there's healthy balance, at least that's what the auditor says. Andy and I have, lived through times when our reserve fund balances weren't so healthy, so we're always concerned exactly how much money we have in the bank, and I'll let Andy speak to that. But I think we have cash flow concerns here that are fairly immediate, and my biggest concern is from the users' standpoint. If we don't start looking forward, it's only going to impact the users when the time comes. And it might be a harsh reality if we stay in this holding pattern of not increasing rates, until 2026. And I'll beg to differ with Steve a little bit. I don't think that was ever a given, that rates were not going to increase until that sales tax sunsetted.
Well, it was definitely talked about as one of the talking points, and like I said, there's no guarantee, obviously. I would mention something else, that got talked about. We talked about the assessments, and a couple meetings ago, we talked about where we don't charge the full reconstruction, or we haven't since, 2012, or when some of the financing issues were going on. And then part of that was with the wastewater funds. Well, now we don't do that, and maybe that's something that we really should be looking at, because if we're doing that work, that full reconstruction work, why not assess for that? And if that's what was being done then to help with the water and wastewater funds, we can do it now too. It really, for the amount of work that gets done in those projects, it's valid from that standpoint as well.
But we have to always be careful. We have to justify benefit, and like the lady that was just in front of us for a little while, you might have more people of that tone if we start to push that limit on the benefit standpoint.
On the 429 assessment that we were just talking about, we're mandated to recover 20% of the costs.
Yes.
But that's for the curb and the asphalt, not for the infrastructure.
No, it's
For
for
sewer and
bonds.
water.
For
Are you saying
bonding.
infrastructure defined as sewer and water?
Yeah, I'm defining that. That's
Yeah,
that's
per our policy, it states that basically the developer is responsible for putting the sewer and water mains in the ground for the lateral service, which in essence an 8-inch main per today's standards. We take ownership of those mains after they're initially installed. Our fee revenues on the water wastewater enterprise funds are ultimately supposed to fund the maintenance and the replacement of that infrastructure, that pipe infrastructure.
John, that 20%, that's the bonding requirement.
Yeah,
And that's the bonding requirement.
bonding requirement. The 429 assessment, I know I read it a couple of years ago
Yeah.
when we were talking about Bridgewater College. Did that only apply to the above ground stuff, what we can see, or did that also apply to the sewer pipes and the water pipes?
It's all in the definitions.
Yeah.
Full reconstruction generally implied that we're building a new roadway section, new sand, gravel, bituminous, and that generally implied we had pipe work down below. But we were always attempting to pay for that utility work through our enterprise funds. However, during the recession time period, we had some unhealthy balances, like I just alluded to, in our water wastewater funds. Thus, we were utilizing some of our bonding revenues and some, in essence, the bonding's matched by assessments, 20%, so in essence, bonding and assessments to help fund the water and wastewater pipe infrastructure costs. In the probably 3 years worth of infrastructure programs, I think 11, 12, 13, if I recall. Actually 14. 12, 13, 14. Yeah, I know the roadways that were involved.
When piping work was being done too.
But we've been hesitant, honestly, from an assessment standpoint to administer our full reconstruction rate. That's what I alluded to when we talked about the assessment for Spruce and 11th and Northwoods, a few meetings ago, because when sewer and water, when people are being assessed for sewer and water services per ordinance, per our policy, that's $3,000 right there, $1,500 respectively for the sewer and the water service. And then you build on the street assessment at, if you go to $80 a front foot for a 40-foot roadway, even with a typical 70-foot lot or 66-foot lot, that's another $5,000. Now you're talking $3,000 plus $5,000, you're talking $8,000. So that's why we've been hesitant to take that full reconstruction rate to that extreme. Because they're already being hit with the cost of the services, the water and the sewer service.
It's just another option.
And then, as part of this MS4 permit, that's when we're going to talk about conservation rates. Is that part of that discussion, or the conservation rate issue on water usage is totally separate from?
We have to develop a water use plan basically every decade that the DNR has to approve. We have a submittal that's coming due here in the near future. What they'll do is they won't approve that. Not that it's the end of the world. We won't be the only community across the state that hasn't adopted conservation rates in their mind, but they won't approve that, and they won't approve any substantial infrastructure on the water distribution side of things. So they wouldn't approve a new water tower. They wouldn't approve the implementation of a new well, an appropriations permit. The DNR went without, in their mind, state statute being achieved on the conservation rate front.
Even though we can show that our water usage is pretty much flat, and industry especially and residential, is making a lot of conservation moves, so.
Yeah, and we approached that, Steve, a year or two ago and had that well documented and submitted to the DNR, and they said, no, thank you. I mean, recorded use isn't conservation when our rate structure is still a declining block structure in their mind. The more you use, the less you pay. That's what's in place now.
So then, Ken, did you want us to okay a review tonight, or what were you looking for?
I guess it's up to Matt. It's under the $50,000.
It's not on there for.
Yeah, it's more for review, because from a spending threshold, yeah. We're open to feedback. I would just stress, from staff standpoint, enterprise funds, and, Andy and I have had conversations and concerns, for a few years now that we think this is at least good foresight to understand where we need to go, because the last thing I want to see is, our cash reserve balances erode in both the accounts. We end up having more cash flow problems. We've minimized, a lot of you have been here and know what we've done, over the last decade or so in these funds from a staffing operations standpoint, and there's not much, if anything, to cut there on that front. So it's really a capital question and a rate question in front of us long term.
So when was the last time we had the rate increase?
2011.
It's just, how do I want to say this? We're just looking at a utilities rate increase,
No, that was a
structuring.
structuring.
Structuring, and some people will see an increase, not all. And now we're looking at this.
Well, possibly. We're just doing a study.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The water fund cash balance is $3,429,000.
Some sense.
And this is $49,200.
When is that? You said the DNR's report, 10-year report, you said soon. When is that?
I believe it's early 19, if I recall.
Well, I think we're usually ahead of the game all the time, so looking at a study, I think, is a good thing.
I would agree. If Kent and Andy feel they need the study to manage these funds, I think we should do it.
Matt, from your standpoint? Sorry to put you on the spot. But,
Well, the one thing that concerns me is the conservation rate. I think what we heard tonight is that our cash balances are healthy, and they're an increasing, maintaining the same. My concern is on that conservation rate. And I agree with Steve. I mean, we can show that our usage is going down, But if the DNR doesn't care, you know, I think we need to at least be ready to react to that. And right now, we're not ready to react to it. It doesn't mean that we can't look at this once we have that feedback, but I think we're going to have to eventually look at that in regards to the conservation. From a fund balance standpoint, I think we're fine.
So the study is just a study, there's no rate increase, you know, based on that. That would be a different topic of conversation.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And what our hope is from a delivery standpoint is initiate this, do the bulk of the work here by the end of 2018, have some good information early 19. If we feel we need to do a rate increase of some sort in 2020, we in essence would have a year to start communicating with our users, our major users. You know, we have to go to a different water rate structure. You know, we have some major users on the industrial users on the top end that we need to start having some conversations with. So, yeah, we just want to be ahead of the curve, you know, and cash flow is concerned because cash flow, how we've set up our capital outlay targets on any given year is based on our cash flow. And if our cash flow is not healthy, which we are looking at or staring down this year, we have a whole list of capital needs that have been suspended. We've been in preservation mode on many fronts with respect to the water wastewater fund for many years. So granted, some of those things can continue to be postponed, but I think that's what we have to understand is how all these pieces fit together and start looking long term.
I guess I just look at the CIP and I don't see that.
Well, I'm hearing a different thing from the guy sitting over there, so I mean, so that's what we have to understand. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pieces here, and in the end we're looking out for the users. We're trying to look long term, and we don't want to be here too long from now talking about a substantial rate increase, because I know how some of those discussions went in the mid-2000s, especially with their industries.
We've pretty much solved the problems with the well casings corrosion with that grounding issue.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, we've had a few that are performing a little better now that haven't been addressed, but we got the problem children, I think, addressed on that front.
So what kind of action do we need on this, Matt? Nothing? Any other?
I guess I'm not opposed to doing the study yet. You're ahead of it, it's not raising the rates. You know, when we had the issue with the wells, I was like, this is going to be expensive, but glad they're taken care of.
Doing the study is, yeah, it's getting information.
Mm-hmm. All righty, anything else for Kent? All right, moving on, review of Truck Highway 15 Main Street reconstruction streetscaping.
Don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time on this, just wanted to give you a status update more than anything. Included a fair amount of information within your packet. A lot of this you've seen. We did include, I guess, the memo that included the summary of the project open house back on June 28th. What came out of that, I think, was just reassurance on some of the different streetscaping aspects we've been looking at with respect to the band of colored concrete, planters, portable planters, bump outs, and what was the other question? Yeah, in general, wayfinding, signage approach. We did get a few comments, some of them project related, some of them not. I guess with respect to the project, public arts was noted. We did get a comment about lanes being too narrow. Comment about bump outs and concerns about them. A couple of comments on that front. Otherwise, what I will show you is what was presented at the public meeting. The poster boards that were in front of people, and this has been provided, and I believe I sent the full presentation from the consultant around the 28th of June. But what they were looking to display is streetscape design elements and themes. And really, we're trying to enhance the downtown area. I guess no secret there, that's a big part of this project. We're going to reuse quality products such as our existing light poles, and we want to build upon existing themes similar to what we did up on Highway 7 and 15 back in 06, 07. Arches, colored concrete, that theme was expanding at that point in time. And we really have established, I guess, our street furniture approach, the decorative metal, with respect to the benches and the trash receptacles that exist downtown today. The railings up on Highway 7 are black metal. The street lights, or the signal poles, are black. Likewise are the street lights, obviously. And then we showed, a little bit more on the themes, element front. In essence, what's been approved, and this is through our citizen advisory group. It's been reaffirmed, I think, by council, our discussion a month or two ago. And approved items, I guess we're considering approved. Granted, this is all subject to change until the final design is arrived at many months from now. But existing light poles to be reutilized, like I mentioned, we'll retrofit those to LED fixtures, flagpole banners, the benches, trash receptacles, ornamental black metal, portable potted plants, I think we're gonna really look at what we should do. This is a concept or an approach that, whether it's city staff, our citizen advisory group, I think even council echoed it a couple of months ago during the workshop. We like the portable planners. We're not so interested in the permanent planners, the bench approach, or at-grade plantings, where basically sidewalk panels are missing. So we're going to take a good look at what can we do planner-wise. Whether it's rectangular planners up against the building fronts, circular planners, the planner containers that are out there today, I don't think they're special by any means, so it's I think it's really a concept and approach that we need to look at is, what's out there for different planners. We want them to be portable, we want them to be able to be stored easily. Obviously, we want them to be long-lasting and sustainable. So we're going to take a good look at that, with the landscape architect that's involved in this project. Because I think in essence, we've really simplified the effort at arriving at the streetscaping approach here. Like I mentioned, a lot of these things we believe are given, our wayfinding approach up there in the upper left, our benches, our trash receptacles, we're reutilizing the street lights, those are all givens already in this design process. So I think the one thing to really look at is the planner approach, the portable planner approach.
What about the hanging plants?
Hanging plants?
On the lights.
Yeah, we can continue to look at that. I know the issue is with reutilizing the existing poles. I'm not so sure if they can be retrofitted to accommodate irrigation. From a maintenance standpoint, that's a concern. Yes, you might be able to put a bracket on them and put a plant on them, or even hang a plant. They might get awful low. We do have the banners, and we do have fairly lengthy banners that are on these poles. So how they get situated, they could be within arm's reach, which can be a concern, with respect to people wanting to grab them and cause some issues, but I know we've talked about them. There are maintenance concerns, watering, having to water them almost daily, depending on the plants in them. So, but it's something we can continue to look at. I know the department that provides the maintenance at this point in time for those plantings isn't a huge fan of that concept.
I was just in Pipestone over the weekend, and here on their main street, they had flower pot arrangements on their light poles, but they didn't hang. They had a bracket, and the planters were actually split and went around and got clamped to the light pole.
So were they up higher or lower, Steve?
They have banners too. I actually sent Matt and Kent a couple
I passed
pictures,
that on
so.
to the project team.
Yeah, so, just looking at the pictures here, maybe they're on the longer poles that don't have the banners, so there might be some opportunities there. But they were really stunning. And again, it does away with having a bracket on there that has to hang, which requires more retrofitting, and maybe that's not possible. But
Because we do have what we've been told is the poles we have, the light poles are they're a good light pole that we made a pretty substantial investment in back in 2005 in the streetscaping project. And the lighting engineer really says there's nothing that can beat that pole out there today, so they should be sandblasted and repainted, but we've been advised to reutilize those poles. It's in our best interest.
Well, and they're nice looking.
Yep,
So why
no
would we
doubt
not?
about it. So it's a matter of, when it comes to hanging planters, it's, can
Well, I
they be
think
retrofitted? Or maybe the trade-off on the portable planter front is we look at, can we intensify those locations? Like I said, can we do the rectangular planters, which I believe are, skip ahead here. Is this concept adjacent to the building fronts, conceivably?
Steve he just showed me a photo of what he saw, and it's very attractive.
Yep. No, we'll continue to look at that, and I just made a note, but I think it'll become a balancing act, conceivably. What are the portable planters out there? Can we arrive at a rectangular planter, strategically located? We want to have some logic, I guess, to the pattern of the planters along the corridor. So that's another thing you're balancing. You just don't want to say, you don't want to leave it in the hands of the property owners, I guess.
No.
We want it to be consistent, to be, uniformly spaced and the like. So, if this is doable, and we can actually find a rectangular planter that can go up against the building front, be portable in nature, not be so heavy, not be tippy, be able to be loaded with basically forks, on a skid steer or a tool cat. This might be a viable concept, and then I think it's how we could conceivably implement that to intensify the greenery along the corridor. And then if it isn't, I think then the hanging planters might become more of a conversation point, because that might end up being your greenery along the corridor, other than what we have today, and that becomes the balancing act.
Well, or maybe it's both, because, having them on the pole, they're at a little higher elevation, and, they're more visible for people traveling through, as well as the pedestrians.
This rendering that we've got up here, that reflects that extra 2.5 feet that's going to be added.
Yes, that reflects the additional width. So we would have this still the 32-inch colored band amenity zone, I guess is what we've been calling it. We've arrived at, everybody we talked to, and especially adjacent property owners, don't like the stamped and sealed concrete. It can be slippery after it's sealed, and then the stamping creates edges when it comes to snow removal. if people are trying to remove snow with a shovel. So we're gonna look at other treatments to that colored band. We intend to use the same hazelnut pigment that exists today, but it's a matter of, you know, how that can be jointed, how it can be different than the gray concrete immediately adjacent to it. So we're leaving that in the hands of our landscape architect friends and see what they can come up with for options. And a lot of this right now is just simply, and like explained to council last time, we've treated this as a two-step process. You know, this is really concept, layout, you know, reaffirming what we have now and what we want to utilize going forward. Like I mentioned, benches, trash receptacles, streetlight poles. And then it's basically reaffirming colored band, 32 inches wide. If we've heard that loud and clear. This shows a bump out scenario where you'd have planters on the bump out. So this reflects the planters that we have today. Obviously, we want to dig into that and research that. What are other options out there? Now's the time in our mind to make that investment. If we're going to make a change on the planter front, why not include it in the project?
Kent, the one thing I will say, being a gardener, if the planters that are, the movable planters that are up against the building, those plants will be different than the ones that are out. Not all of those will get sun.
Yep.
You know, so if we had that mix of some that are against the building that aren't sun lovers, and you had some on the poles, like you showed, Steve, because they will be much larger and much more beautiful.
Yeah.
You know,
No doubt.
I'm just saying, you know, it would be nice to have that mix, because right now all of our planters sit in the sun, you know, and they won't have that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know.
No doubt, yeah, and there'll have to be some thought put to that and locations and heat island effect. You know, it's gonna be a pretty harsh area for anything. I guess they're showing purple coneflowers. I think those will grow anywhere, but you know.
It's pretty hot against those buildings.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the mid-block. Really wanted to show that colored band, the additional sidewalk length like John alluded to, and then the rectangular planter. And then the next slide, well, that's it for the four poster boards. What I also included were the meeting summary from your council workshop back on June 12th, and yeah, this is my copy. I just highlighted a few things, and a lot of this has already been reaffirmed, and we continue to research the design approach. And like I said, MnDOT, what they want to see from the city is just approve the layout, approve the general concept, and then we're going to jump into the final design and really let the landscape architect take over and determine what options are out there. Planters, plantings, you know, really that's about all joining of the concrete, that's about all we have left, other than, like I alluded to within the council packet, trees, which we talked a fair amount about back on June 12th. And I'll get to that slide or that drawing here shortly, but this was a simple, I guess, inventory of comments put together by the consultants. So just a little more information, and I think it reflects what we've already been talking about and the feedback we've gotten from basically everybody on the top in red, city council, back from your workshop, the brown, orange, city staff. The consultant met with city staff, and obviously including Parks Department, Mr. Moon, who is in charge of the maintenance to a large degree of a lot of these things. And then they also met with the historical hutch, and I guess the big feedback from them is they didn't see so much that historical aspects needed to be incorporated within the project. We're hearing a little different story on the public arts side of things, and we've had quite a bit of discussion about wrapping signal boxes, could platforms, pedestals be incorporated within the project? How allowable is MnDOT to that, and what locations could those be placed at? So I think that's yet to come. That's part of the detailed design, is really how we incorporate the public arts aspects as we move forward.
Speaking to that, somebody that was at the open house that talked to I think the MnDOT rep, head person, and it was suggested that we ask MnDOT to provide, can't remember if I'm calling it the right thing, but opportunity areas where things could be added later on. There you go.
Yeah, and that conversation was news to me, and obviously I responded to your email, Steve. And I think somebody researched their policy, provided that response to you guys, and then, that's how I learned about their formal policy. We've had a lot of conversation about opportunity areas, amenity areas within our citizens group. So I think that just reaffirms the conversations we've already been having. And yes, I've taken a look at the formal public arts policy within state right-of-ways now, so I've come up the learning curve, and you're exactly right. The city does have to initiate MnDOT to do a review and really they then provide some input on what is possible within this particular right-of-way and how that can be arrived at. Because obviously, state right-of-ways, state highway right-of-ways vary from highway to highway with adjacent buildings, users, etc. So, yep, you're exactly right. And like I said, I imagine that's going to be part of the final design process.
It sounded like it was something that we should request even now, just to get that in part of the process to be talked about.
Yes. What I really wanted to do was float it to kind of respect the Citizens Advisory Group, float it in front of them in August, and then more than likely bring that to council.
Okay.
I do believe we need
That's enough
formal
time.
council action, and possibly do that at the first meeting in August. Lastly, the consultant put together a drawing, and what we really wanted to show were the green areas, which we call the available planting zones. And the drawing works from, I'll work it from the south here. 5th Avenue south, north, and then likewise north, and then all the way up to 2nd Avenue north, immediately south of the bridge. And what we wanted to indicate, following up on the council's workshop on June 12th, were what we see, or the consultant, the landscape architect, MnDOT, basically the project management team sees as the available areas for tree plantings. And it becomes pretty limited. We end up with the east side immediately north of 5th Avenue, between 4th and 5th, those residential properties down there on that block. Then you continue up. They do show a few trees, potentially of smaller areas around the 3rd Avenue intersections, and you're really getting to a footprint there where it's a in-ground planter more than anything, where it's just basically sidewalk panels missing, like we've looked at before, and you have plantings in them. Tree grates, you see people still utilizing them. You're seeing less and less of them. They're going more into this at-grade planting approach, or basically a planter, a permanent planter that also functions as a bench. So that's what these areas would really lend themselves to. And then you have to continue quite a ways north and get north of 1st Avenue South, so between 1st and Washington, on the east side of the roadway there. And obviously, that's Library Square, so that seems a little bit counterintuitive, and that's the feedback we've gotten from some people on our citizen advisory group. And then you continue north, you're really up to the Shopko area, which is already vegetated, to some degree, what we did with the streetscape project back in 2005. So it's relatively minimal. I think we're at a point where we really need to decide if we want to have the landscape architect and MnDOT, continue to consider tree plantings as part of this design. And that's what we're struggling with, because the opportunities don't seem to exist, and, I'm all for trees, but, yeah.
I'm just going to say, and I get the feedback from the council, was there was concern about visibility, and
Yep.
so I'll respect that, and, hopefully maybe with the planters, there's some opportunities to green things up more. But this is kind of a joke, to be honest. So, you mentioned grading, and I mean, there is no consistency here. There's other, you see what was done in Alex, see what was done in even Gaylord, and, they made trees work. Now, will they last?
Yeah.
Guess we'll see. But they incorporated that into the project, using the grates and all that, and
Yep.
we're not even given that as an option here. But again, I think the consensus was that we, probably wasn't going to work, or from some of the business comments and other people, and that's fine.
So what are you advocating for, Steve?
Well, we're not going to have trees, and that seemed to be the consensus. I would like to see the planters and look at those light pole planters to have some more planting that's higher up, elevated a little more, provide color. And I don't know if it's a winter thing, how that could get incorporated, if at all, but maybe they get, I don't know how. Pipestone. Oh, yeah, you can have lights, or, but-
Yeah, and I failed to mention, Steve, obviously this drawing, how it's prepared accounts for the fact that, no trees in front of business fronts.
Right.
That's being discounted here. Steve's exactly right. You can put trees that, there should be enough room if you wanted to do a tree grade approach with a reasonable ornamental type tree, stature-wise, you could deliver that. I don't dispute that, but really what we gleaned from council, me, the MnDOT person in the room, the council workshop back on June 12th, and the consultant was, you weren't so interested in putting trees in front of building business fronts.
That's
Like
exactly
Steve
what
mentioned,
we
so
said.
that does account for that feedback, and these are really the opportunity areas that wouldn't be in front of building fronts, and this is what you're left with.
Oh, and I agree with that, We are fortunate that we have a beautiful park that sits in the center of our city, and there's a lot of trees in that park, and there's a lot of green space there. So I'm fine with the planters, and if we can do something like what you just showed, Steve, that will enhance our downtown. I mean, I would hate to put the trees in and then they're either in the way or they die, and we don't need that either.
And that's what I've expressed. I hope there's more options out there for these portable planters. And we can arrive at something that's very aesthetically pleasing, that allows for, relatively easy maintenance efforts during the winter months, because, the city does all the snow removal downtown, so it's a wonderful thing when all the planters go away come winter time and we don't have to remove snow around them. But I hope we can find something with respect to those rectangular planters along the building fronts, because I think that can really utilize to a larger degree the additional sidewalk width. Because otherwise we've arrived at additional sidewalk width, to narrow the road, which has its benefits. We've talked a lot about that, but how are we, somewhat capitalizing on that from an aesthetic amenity standpoint? And we're going to look at more benches, and, how we can maybe strategically place them, but without those rectangular planters on the back side of the sidewalk, I struggle with how much aesthetically we'll gain when we deliver this project. No, and we'll look at the hanging planters also, like we've talked about, definitely.
Could, you mentioned benches, could they be, maybe look at options to incorporate them into some of those planters, those rectangular
Yeah.
planters?
St. James just did a project and they did exactly that, yeah.
That was discussed at our citizens group, and we just noted how few people actually sit in the benches that exist. You know, they, in my opinion, go largely unused.
Well,
Except in the park.
Right,
There are
I'm talking
always
like
people in the
outside of
park.
Library Square.
Right.
But the rest of them that sit in the middle of blocks, I rarely see somebody sitting in them.
We had the one citizen comment about doing the bypass. But I think at the point where the county decided to do the bypass, you have less semis, but that's way out. You know, I think more people would be more willing to sit on Main Street if you didn't have semis driving by.
Well, and
I don't know if that's why people aren't sitting there. I mean, it's just not a corridor where people want to just sit and watch cars go by, in my opinion.
want to address the bypass, there is a bypass for semis already.
Yeah.
Not,
what?
there's already bypasses for semis if you've got
If they
the,
want to use it.
it's the, you've got the, was it 119?
115
115 on them, yes, south side.
airport.
And air, yeah. And
But that,
22.
yeah,
It's not bypass in the sense
Yeah.
of, I would caution the impact it would have on downtown when you talk about him.
but that's really directional, and what
Yes.
I think John's talking about
Yeah,
is
the
the
northeast ring
northeast.
road.
yeah.
Northeast Ring Road, yeah. We don't like the word bypass. Stick to Ring Road, yes. Yes.
Anything else, Kent?
No, that's, yeah,
All right.
trees were the last thing I wanted to touch on, so I just want to make sure council is comfortable with us moving away from trees. I mean, that's a big step from a design standpoint, and, you know, what we're asking MnDOT, their consultant, and specifically their landscape architect to do for us.
Yep.
I'm sad about it. For the record.
I think the planters that you showed us, that's a tree without a.
Yep, without a trunk.
I mean,
A tree without a trunk, let's see.
greenery upstairs, but you don't have to worry about.
What's on the
you know,
bottom.
it dying on the bottom. So, my dog.
I like
chewed on
that.
it or something like that.
It wouldn't be true.
All right,
All
thanks,
right,
Kent.
thank you.
Review of city alley special assessment policy.
I'll just stay here, but yeah, it's relatively simple, the approach we're proposing for this. You know, like I noted, we're simply making the language within the existing city assessment policy more inclusive. Like we've talked about at council a while ago, we also touched on this at resource allocation committee, and we're still maintaining the 50-50 parameter, albeit we would do it on a actual cost basis. So we wouldn't know what we're assessing adjacent property owners until we have the construction bid in hand and we provide the notice for the assessment hearing immediately prior to the award of the bid. So that's a little different than how we administer our street projects, where our assessments are set within the city fee schedule and we prorate them based on street width, and we're able to communicate that early on to adjacent property owners. So this is, however, this is an approach to delivering projects and assessing that a lot of cities utilize. You know, a lot of cities, and Hutchinson did it not too terribly long ago. When I first got here, we were still assessing based on percentage, but we're running into some of the issues with that, and you know, people paying more for the same project just depending on the construction bid, and really from a property value standpoint, benefit standpoint, that's not necessarily a good thing, you know, that you just pay more based on the construction bidding environment. So I think we're doing things well on the street side of things. I think this is an an adequate approach on the alley side of things, especially when the alleys are petitioned for by adjacent property owners. Any thoughts?
I like it.
I think it looked fine.
I think it, I thought a couple meetings ago, I talked about possibly the higher amount, but, and that was based just on the limited benefit, to those property owners, and then we're trying to conserve dollars we have for streets and roadways, but at the same time, it gets to what you talked about. If we're assessing, we still have the benefit piece to be respectful for, and so I think this balances both of those needs and still gives property owners an opportunity, if like to pursue, alley, a way to possibly do that. And I think it's fairer from one project to the next, like you mentioned, maybe costs are a little different, but again, it's a more of an optional project to begin with. So.
Yeah, the other thing too, and we've talked about this, and Steve, you just mentioned it too, the one thing we've noticed that is our focus is on the main thoroughfares. It's not on alleys, and so when you start getting into more of the front footage, square footage, makes more sense on streets, and like I said, that comes down to really conversations amongst the council members is, where do your resources want to be focused in? Is alleys one of them? And so this is somewhat of an avenue to weigh those costs evenly, if you want to say.
I think honestly, if, bids were to come in high on a project and there was one property owner that contested us in the end, the rate was just too high, I think the city would more than likely just walk away from the project. And that's always the out at the end of the day. The city is not forced, unless there's 100% on the petition to deliver the improvement. So that, from a benefit 429 statute standpoint, there's always an out clause, and if the costs become too overbearing to one or two property owners adjacent to the improvement.
So you'll bring back or just incorporate this?
Yeah, I think it's simple enough if you're fine. Just approve the language, and I'll just amend the policy. It's a policy document, so I can easily enough amend it.
Again, there might be some additional items that we need to get added, so that might be good, just even if it's a consent agenda item, just get some updates to that. It's good.
All right. Thanks, Kent.
Yep, thank you.
Discussion of Century Avenue Court Apartments deferred assessment.
Excuse me, Mayor and Council, I know the developer owner is actually here tonight. But city staff did receive a request to waive a deferred assessment. I know I included in your packet a memo kind of showing some of our history. This wasn't the assessment total is $132,632.17. This is from the best that we could gather. It's from work that was done in the early 90s, might even stretched a little bit into the 80s. There was a subdivision agreement that was entered into by the developer or the owner of the property at that time that talked about the deferral and how it was going to be deferred until the land was developed. It is staff's recommendation to not waive it. I know the developer has asked the council to reconsider that. A couple of things that I didn't include after doing some further research. We have currently 85 active deferrals on our books. Over $1 million in principal and over $6 million in, when you include the interest on that. And to her amazing credit, Pat had records that go all the way back to 1974, and so we've done roughly over 370 deferrals in the last 40 years, just to kind of, to give you an idea of potentially the impact it may have on the city when it comes to that. So that's the biggest concern from staff, is that, quite frankly, we receive requests all the time, and even within the last 3 years, we've received requests that have been denied. And so there's obviously an impact on what that means to the city and what it means to the policies of the city. And so if you were to do something, if you were to consider something, you would be setting somewhat of a precedent, within the city. And that's something, I guess, to be mindful of as you consider this. So I gave you a lot of information. There's a lot of information included in your council packet. Mayor, I know the owner developer did ask to address the city council, so I guess I'll give that back to you if you would.
Matt, want to come forward and introduce yourself?
I'll get my best dog and pony. I'm Matt Ward. I own Century Court Apartments, townhomes, and the new project that we're doing. Didn't know about the assessment, totally my fault. Quit claimed the property to me and bought a couple properties at the same time. The only thing that I think when I look at that is, had that been addressed earlier, I think something would have been done, in my opinion. I could be wrong. In negotiating the townhomes, I wanted more buildings. I didn't fight at all. I didn't want as much sidewalk. I didn't fight at all. I'm putting in $11 million into that chunk of dirt that's sitting there vacant. I'm going to be paying, right now I'm paying $1,400 and some change per year. That's going to go up to $70,000, $80,000 when I get done. We're going to have an $11 million project with a pond and a fountain and beautiful luxury townhomes, and everything's over budget and everything's hard. So I'm just asking for help on that, for your consideration. And I think from a pragmatic sense, I think that the tax base is going to go up tremendously when I'm done. So I have no leverage here. I'm just asking for help, because everything I'm doing there is already over budget. I'm going to have almost $2 million in the dirt by the time we're all said and done. And I don't get paid for that. I don't get cash flow out of that. So that's just my request, and I ask you to consider it, please.
I guess as Matt mentioned, I hope you can appreciate that city gets requests all the time to waive fees or make changes, and for benefit and of the projects. We've got other programs to assist businesses in projects that qualify for those different things, but I don't see this as being one of them. This is an avenue, just because it's not fair to projects that have happened in the past, the other ones that are out there, other projects yet to come, that will have assessments to them. And I don't think it's fair to the taxpayers who really funded those assessments back, when they were due. And if you look at the value of that money now, it's basically pretty close to what, the assessment. I really looked, I know Matt would attest, I was peppering him, when he talked about, some of the numbers of projects that are out there, or for assessments, some of that came from some of the questions that I had too, and just caution the council on the precedent as well. So, appreciate, and I understand why you might be asking.
You gotta ask.
Gotta ask.
I guess my experience with this is Habitat for Humanity, and, Gary owns a couple of lots that we bought in '99, and So all the lots on the south side of Hilltop Drive all had deferred assessments on dating back to '89. And as we moved along there and built the houses, we had these lots that had $14,500 in assessments. And then we split the lots, so we did twin homes, so we charged about $7,250 or whatever it was to each one. And there's still 2 lots there that we don't own that somebody purchased from, and they're, they can't build on the lot or do anything until they pay off the deferred assessments. Unfortunately, it's 1989 and the interest rate is at, it looks like it's 7% on these. So, when Matt laid out these options, I can see that, you could drop the interest rate from way on maybe that made a little bit of sense, but I don't think you can set the precedent to give up the assessment. The other thing that we dealt with when I first came on council that is really not the same thing, but we dealt with some assessments that weren't paid by regular college. And in our settlement there, we made them pay off the assessments. What we were able to do is forgive the penalty portion of it to a certain extent. And, we set a precedent there. And if Julie wants to talk about deferred assessments, my wife is the executive director that we were dealing with.
I only want to hear from Julie if she agrees with me. Julie, what if we just got away with the interest and I paid the principal?
I think everybody's been past practice, right? Paying the interest. It's what
We do it for you, we have to do it for whoever comes before us the next time.
Gotcha. So it's a thumbs down?
Well, Matt, you said there was maybe a thing where he could.
Well, and I'll show, some of what I shared with the council was that idea of getting rid of the interest, and I did note to them, that's something we have not done before. One of the things that we haven't done that I guess could be considered, and that's why I have the attorney sit next to me. I like number 3. I don't know from a cash flow standpoint if it makes sense to assess this back over, take that 132 and assess it over the next 5 years to help you out.
Would that help you out?
To where you're not having to come up with 132 or whatever that time frame would be if the council, in one sense, we continue to make sure that we receive our payment, so you're out to where you're not.
I'm not burning up as much cash.
You're not burning up cash up front. It hasn't been something that we've done before in the past, but we're also not out our costs for the deferral. I threw that out there as a potential option.
And the city's been paying interest for 15 years, whatever on this.
Well, that, most likely that bond's been paid off.
Bond is gone.
Right, but still, that.
There was essentially money that wasn't available to the city at that time.
Would that help you?
That would help.
would a 5-year period work?
Sure.
Do that, Andy?
Well, we'd have to, Mark and I would have to.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an option. I don't know anything that would prohibit us from doing that. But I guess that's up to you. I don't know if if you know anything otherwise.
From a legal standpoint, it's possible to be done if you're going to reassess it. One of the things the statute talks about is you have to justify your reason for doing it. And
Are we really reassessing it, or we're just changing the payment terms? So it's still the same dollar amount, but we're just going to take that amount and set a payment plan over 5 years.
Just like the IRS.
Yeah.
You have to do it with an assessment rule.
right.
Yeah, you have to readopt an assessment rule.
So
And leave it here.
Yeah. So you have to go through that assessment process just as you did first time around. And as I said, you have to have a justification, and maybe there is ample justification considering what you're talking about. So it's possible to be done. Obviously, the other things that you have to consider, like people have already mentioned, right, and that's or wanting the same thing. You know, you heard earlier tonight from Donna Harley talking about Birch Street. Another predicament.
We do wait. You were talking about Westwood Prairie.
So, you know, just be ready for that eventuality, and maybe you're able to say this is a totally different thing with the tax revenue that's going to be brought in the side project. But it's, as Matt mentioned before, you know, staff is the one that's going to have to be doing the initial addressing of the concerns and the inquiries and the requests. So
I don't want to open up a can for you guys either. It would just help, and it would benefit you and the taxes you're going to get, but
Well, and then
I don't want to kill anybody here, you know what I mean?
And that gets back to the one comment I noted, you know, outside of basically telling Matt and the developer, you gotta pay it, we're gonna be setting a precedent in some sense. We've got some flexibility when it comes to tax forfeiture properties, but,
right.
you know.
You may remember a number of years ago, Mr. Wardell came in with his development, was at Blackbird. And, you know, the difference there was, because they had gone through the tax forfeit process, there wasn't any assessments pending on that property any longer. And by law, we had the ability to reassess it at that point because there wasn't anything existing. So that's what was sitting in that scenario. And,
So Matt, you mentioned there's 82 properties that are actively in deferral right now.
Like 85, yeah, approximately 85. Some of those have a couple different,
So really, you know, from a precedent standpoint, would that be so terrible if this was the precedent that, you know, we're still going to get our money that's due, but we'll just enable someone to stretch it out 3 to 5 years or something, depending on the amount. Andy, Mark, I guess just asking.
I don't know what necessarily so bad about that is that you might just have more requests for that.
Right, I think that's the larger concern is how many requests come in after. We had one 3 weeks ago on a deferral to, you know, complaining about the interest rate after the term, and, you know, we didn't do anything for that individual.
But that's what, we're not doing anything here other than
Right, reassessing.
Extending the term out a little bit.
Right.
We'd still get the same money plus a little interest more. Otherwise, you know, I guess I'd go back to just not wanting to make a change because of the precedent, but if the precedent that we look at really doesn't create a problem for future projects.
I mean, you know, I would say you're likely going to have probably similar requests from those that are large like this one.
Yeah.
You know, I think when I was looking at our deferral list, we have as small as $61 to as large as $266,000.
Could we put a dollar amount on or not? Or
I mean, like Matt alluded to, I mean, principle-wise, there's about $1 million or so deferred assessments out there. Half of that one was like 3 assessments. I'm not going to name names at this point, but like Matt said, the rest of them are relatively small dollar amounts, the other 80. So, yeah. And a lot of those are long-standing. The 3 are actually fairly recent. So.
We can go snoop on the county website.
Well, for me, it comes down to a couple grand a month versus 132 up front. And I could sure use that in the development.
But do you need other financing options possibly?
For
I'm not sure if it works, but Mid-Minnesota Development Commission does secondary market loans
No.
for job creation, really. I don't know what this would fit.
Yeah, this is housing.
But it's in the EDA.
I appreciate that. No, I think I'll just leave it up to you guys if you're willing to do that or not.
I think, I think staff needs to just look at that and look at what that option possibility would be. And we can communicate that with both you guys and bring that potentially back at our next council meeting for you guys to consider. Because I think whatever that is, if it is something, it's going to have to be some sort of an agreement or arrangement.
Look at a five-year deal or what's that? Something like that.
I think that's.
I think I'd be.
We don't necessarily need to make that decision. That's part of what the conversation will have to be with Mark and staff.
Okay.
All right. So
Sounds good to you, man?
I'll hear from you then, eh?
Yeah, we'll get back in touch.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you for your consideration. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Sorry to make you wait so long.
That's all right.
Resolution number 14922, resolution community improvement fund balance of $3 million for future police facility expenditures.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We'll move along.
Motion by Steve, second by Chad to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I'll just say this was in response to the conversation we had at our workshop about designating some of that hospital money, so.
Okay. We'll catch up. Project award for trail and parking improvement, letting number 10, project number 18-10. Under there's resolution 14928, resolution accepting bids and awarding contracts.
Yes, this one should be pretty straightforward also. This is our little trail and parking improvements out there by Elks Park on Sherwood Street, and then the little trail and sidewalk extension south of the Fifth Avenue Bridge area. We've talked a fair amount about this and the scope of the project. We did receive 4 bids back on June 26. The apparent responsive low bidder is Dunnick Incorporated out of Princeburg, Minnesota. Their bid was about 1.5% above our final engineer's estimate. Thus, we recommend awarding the project to Dunnick Incorporated. There are no assessments on this project, so there isn't the need for a formal hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to approve. Any other discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have food vendor application for Adam Ramirez. Ankle. I think he has a taco truck, doesn't he?
I believe so. This was, it was something that just, staff had on its hands, we should have had it in the agenda, and we missed to get that out, and so that's why we asked to add it to the agenda for your consideration. I believe the intentions is to be selling food over by the farmer's market. It'd be on the east side of the building. We've already talked with them to ensure that they're 100 feet, from the VFW. That's the main request. I suppose that's not the only location, so.
Right.
That's going to end up there. Yeah.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Chad, second by John to approve the food vendor license. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
We can add an informal request that he go to the brewery. and stuff is really good, so.
As long as there's license, so.
You'll probably show up there.
Yeah.
Discussion on city council public engagement efforts.
Mayor and council, one of the items that we discussed at our strategic planning session was just more public engagement efforts on behalf of the city council. And I know a couple things we talked about, specifically National Night Out and the county fair are coming up soon. And so I hadn't received any feedback, so I just wanted to, I guess, make sure I brought this back in front of you just to see if there was any desire to move forward. And one of the things we did receive, there is an option for us. We've talked about doing the council blog and just wanted to get that out to you. I'm not saying that we need to start that now, but that was just to kind of give you, there is an option and a possibility.
$20 a year, right?
No, that was just one-time fee. Yeah, it's one-time fee to set that up. And so just wanted to bring this back out in front of you to see if there was anything else that.
As far as public engagement, I think that, Steve, on the dunk tank on Sunday.
Me too.
Historical signing?
At the fair.
At the fair, it's all done historical signing. $10
Shucks,
for one
I'm gone.
throw, 50 for two. Okay? And I'm gonna have a gun. Get it the first time.
Jeez.
You know, a couple of things with National Night Out, you know, obviously those are neighborhood, they're parties, those are available for, depending on where they're at, for anyone to participate. And just talking with the chief, I know they're participating in a booth at the county fair, so if there was any desire, you know, the one thing obviously I'd probably caution is just with the election season amongst us too, with, not saying you can't go out and campaign, but it's probably not appropriate on the city, so.
Yeah, I think the fair is something that some of us could just stop by and be there to talk to people, and then it's the fair too, you're walking around and people get hit up.
Yeah.
I was never one, I guess, with the blog idea, just because it takes time and you gotta do it kind of regular to make it more effective. But one thing I shared with Matt when he asked for budget ideas was, I kind of like that idea of having coffee with the council, you know. Maybe 2 council members could go, and it could rotate around to different coffee shops in town, but and that could be advertised and on a schedule and stuff like that. So
That's almost like going into a lion's den.
Except they're coming to you a little bit more, but I know you had maybe not the best experience, but.
Mayor, please up in St. Cloud does something like that.
It's becoming more, I would say it's become more and more popular, something like that, to where there's a designated period and probably a little bit different setting that I think Gary went through. But, and I haven't included something in the budget for next year on that. So, like I said, I'm not asking, I just wanted to make sure that I kept this at the forefront and just had it in front of you guys. So I'm not asking for any decisions or anything, just want to make sure it was in front of you.
The other easy public engagement thing that came from the Minnesota Cities Conference was Minnetonka had a lack of citizen engagement. So what they did is they put out chalkboards in parks and stuff like that so people could write things on the chalkboards and they rotated, and they said it worked really well.
Well, you know, one of the things too, now that you know, one of the things that, since you mentioned that, a part of our part of our master park plan, there are going to be some of those neighborhood park meetings where, you know, they'll be able to go out and have some of those conversations with our consultants. There'll be something similar to that, so.
I think all of us as council members, we may not be, how do I want to say it? Like, I'm doing tickets at the fair, I'm at the gate, I'm in the historic Hutchinson booth. I mean, we all do things, it might not just be city council orientated, but because you are in that position, people do come and talk to you about, say things. Chad does it every day in his store. Steve, you
Well,
do
that is,
see 'em.
that is a
You know, it's just PR.
good meeting place.
Just want to make sure that was in front of you guys, so.
Thanks.
Well, younger people are on do the blog stuff, not,
So you need to define younger for some of you guys, so.
well, okay.
I just want,
my-
I get,
yeah.
at the very least, I want to know, let you guys know those options are out there.
Yeah, because my son, daughter-in-law, Chad can talk to this, your generation lives by social media, I guess, right?
I think your son's business does a really nice job with their social media. You know, they're all over it.
Yeah, so I think that's one angle that the city could use. All right, we have the City of Hutchinson Financial Report and Investment Report for June 2018, Hutchinson Housing Redevelopment Authority Board Minutes from June 19th, 2018. Andy, you have anything else for us tonight?
I don't. Curious though, did you notice the extra page I put in the financial report?
The blank page?
What's the result?
There are some.
On Sunday liquors, I put a one-page deal.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of interesting to see the trends.
Yeah.
It's difficult to see if it's really having an impact on our sales, just because, seasonal can fluctuate with sales to begin with, but there's some pretty large decreases in traffic on Mondays and Saturdays, right around the Sundays, so.
But overall, though, we're still
seeing
up.
a 3% increase in sales.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to see those patterns developing on Fridays and Saturdays and Mondays.
Yeah, page 209 in your council packet has that report on it.
I was just testing the guys.
Seeing if we're awake?
You guys all feel.
The Tribune just had an article about Sunday liquor sales, and the smaller stores really aren't seeing the benefit. And
I think, us being a regional center is probably the biggest benefit to us, because you're getting some of that traffic that's probably here on a Sunday for an event or another that.
But I've talked to people that come here from Litchfield.
So.
It's amazing go out to Cashwise and have a hot dog or something on the weekend. You watch people walking in, and most of them I don't know. It's just amazing. So I think we draw from quite a ways away.
Well, and when you look at the historical numbers, that 4% up customer, that's higher than what we've been, that's overall, higher than what it's been.
Yeah, 4 is higher.
Yeah, so.
What it could be doing is, instead of coming on a Saturday to get everything for the weekend, maybe they're doing a Friday and a Sunday, or maybe they're making multiple trips in a week. That's hard to tell. It's hard to quantify with limited data.
Thanks, Andy. Kent?
Yes, a few quick things. Century Avenue and that Hutchinson Health water main work, there was some activity last Friday night. Started about 10 p.m., went to about 4 a.m. Saturday morning. We actually made the connection to the hospital, so just want to thank staff involved in that. That's a unique situation. We had to coordinate very closely with the hospital staff and the contractor and city staff. So everything went well, and people were able to get out of there around 4 a.m. with a couple hours to spare on the hospital front. They wanted water back on at 6 a.m. So thanks to everybody involved in that. MnDOT Highway 15 Main Street, I should have mentioned this earlier, streetscaping survey. It's on the project website, on MnDOT's website. We've sent the link out to it on the Facebook, city Facebook page, and then also it's on the city website. There's a link to it. So trying to gather as much feedback as we can on the streetscaping front from the general public, and VinDOT's doing their part in making that happen. Mosquito control, believe it or not, we're almost through our scheduled applications, which expire Wednesday, August 1st. So, and then we will rely on counts from thereafter. We think with the wet weather and pretty regular rains, the counts have been down from what John's telling me, and we haven't seen any spikes in counts, and just the regular applications have kept things under control pretty well in the pond treatments earlier on this year. So we'll see what happens this fall.
I think they're avoiding those readings, so.
Yeah, so I don't, we'll go from there, and we do have a healthy mosquito control account, I think, to absorb additional applications this fall.
Well, it's all general fund expense now.
Yeah.
No funds set aside for.
Oh, yeah, that one went away, okay.
Those are gone 2 years ago.
Oh, all right, so it's out of the council's budget then, I guess.
Don't we include some of that? I thought in the contract we had some optional ones.
Yeah, we have the built into the contract, but we have to pay them for those optional.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's only budgeted for the regular applications, so we'll go from there.
From what I hear, people don't mind spending a little bit.
No.
So if the numbers are there, so.
Yep.
And then lastly, on the trail front, County Trail Committee meeting tomorrow night, and just wanted to mention at the council, due to the fact that we will be reviewing the Dakota Rail Trail preliminary engineering study that the city participated in funding. So I believe it's a quality draft document that's been put together by the consultant, and it's going to be brought in front of the Trail Committee tomorrow night, and to get their feedback. And I guess it's really up to the county staff and county board where it goes from there. I'm not certain it's going to go in front of the board necessarily. I think it'll more than likely just get finalized after the committee reviews it. And like we've always indicated from the front end, is we really needed a document with some good cost estimating preliminary design information to pursue future grant opportunities as the county elects to hopefully do so. That's it.
Kent, seal coating.
Yeah, forgot to mention that. Yes, went very well. We were very pleased with Pearson Brothers, who've done it a number of times over the years here. Yeah, no, John and I were just talking about that. It went down nice. They got it swept up. Good chip coverage. Chips stayed in place very well, and then it was fog sealed on last Saturday. They went over the top of it, and yeah, we're happy with the product and how it played out. I don't know if you guys have gotten any feedback or concerns.
They really go, don't they?
Yeah, they don't like to stay a long time.
Did notice some areas, and I haven't been on some of those again to see if they went back and cleaned it up, but there seemed to be like a trail of chips kind of like they were turning or something, and they fog sealed right over that. I don't know if there's a way to smooth that out, or
There'll be some movement, and there's some areas along the curb lines, where the chips resided, or maybe their sweeping operation didn't capture prior to the fog seal. We'll go in and do a sweep later on this. We don't want to get on it right away until we're confident that it's firmly cured out, and then we'll try to capture as much of the chips as possible so they don't end up in people's boulevards when the snow removal operations come.
Thanks, Kent. Mark?
I don't have anything else tonight.
No?
No?
Mary, how about you?
Kent can give us an update on the fountains.
I can give you an update on one of them, I guess, and
just
maybe
even
Matt
on
knows
one
more
advice.
I'm not certain on the library square one, that's out of our realm, but we're still trying to diagnose the issue with the river fountain, and we have a connection issue. We're trying to arrive at we have somebody looking at the motor right now to make sure that's good and that didn't get impacted by the connection issue, basically between the conduit and the motor. We know that's an issue that we're trying to remedy, but we're trying to figure out if there was impacts to the motor itself. So hopefully we learn more in the coming weeks here. Likelihood fountain goes in the river at this point, I think, is pretty slim this year.
Conversations I have with Dalton, maybe by the first week of August, though, for Square. I think they're just kind of waiting on some contractor work there, so.
It'd be nice if it could run this year. Orange Spectacular's in town, so enjoy, you know. That's it.
John?
I guess I've mentioned it before, is, you know, Mid-Minnesota Development Committee, or Commission has this gap financing for businesses that would create jobs. And I know there's like $200,000 in the account right now. We need to lend it out. There's like $160,000 that is escrowed to the federal economic development entity because we haven't loaned enough money out. So it's the second on loan. If you want to start a business and can't get full financing from the bank, this is an option. So they're based out of Wilmer. Covers Renville, Candy, Ojai, Meeker, and McLeod County.
Does that get communicated to Miles or maybe Southwest Initiative?
I'm sure Miles is aware of it, but anybody that is an entrepreneur and wants to start a business that would create jobs is an option.
Southwest.
You know, one loan that they made was to actually the Westinghouse when Ukraine went up, and they were able to loan the money to them to put the racking up in the business. So that's out there. You pay a little bit on your levy. If you notice other on your property tax statements, that's who the other is Minnesota Development. I know Planning Commission, we're going to have Highfield Department number 4 on the Planning Commission.
4 and 5.
On the 6th of August, we'll be doing the inflatable screen and the movie in the park after Music in the Park. And I'm not sure which movie it is, but we're doing that again.
On the 6th?
On the 6th, Monday the 6th of August.
Dirty Dancing.
Is it Dirty Dancing now? Okay. What else I got? I think Steve and I are going to do green stuff at the fair.
We gotta
We have time.
reach out to them, yeah.
Well, the email said that they were fine with just 2 of us doing it. They don't, that's what So show off, talk about the PD radar.
Nice to get some information, some other information too.
And like I said before, 1 for 10, 2 for 50 on the thing. I'm going to be dressed up as Martin McLeod, so I'll have my top hat on. I think that's going to be in the 50. That's it.
Steve?
Just Kent, you know, now that all the projects are kind of getting all wrapped up in the financing, our debt targets is good and state aid account. And
Yep, with all the moving pieces, through resource, everything landed very well. We're just under the $1.9 million bonding target. So assessments, we're able to generate enough assessment revenue on Century and the pavement management program project. State aid dollars, we are utilizing what we knew we were going to utilize on the bridge project, about $550,000 or so for that project, but we are going to utilize about $400,000 of state aid dollars on Century Avenue. Our bids were a little higher. That helps us out, you know, protecting the bonding target more than anything, and also a little bit on the utility fund front. And we have a healthy state aid, municipal roadway state aid account, and that'll leave us with just over $1 million, I believe, and at the end of this year, and then we'll get our 2019 allocation early on, which last year was just over 800,000. So, we'll be in a healthy position going into next year to deliver Fifth Avenue South and conceivably South Grade Road. And even with those projects going into the Highway 15 Main Street project, you know, a lot of what we were talking about earlier, you know, our costs as this plays out seem to be going down, you know, as we look at the amenities and the improvements that we're going to arrive at. You know, if we're not talking about in-ground planters and substantial plantings, and, you know, we're reutilizing the existing light poles and some of the furniture out there, benches and trash receptacles and the likes. I think our participation, our cost sharing estimation continues to go down, and we did an estimate on the wastewater and waterfront just recently, and those, as we prepared the CIP submittal just recently, and that doesn't look so bad either. So yeah, to answer your question, I guess in a long-winded manner, I think we're sitting well on multiple fronts.
The only other thing I have is 2 suggestions possibly with the master park plan. One would be to look at maybe the possibility of additional community gardens in some of our parks where, you know, that way they're more close to where residents are, and maybe part of a survey or the community outreach to get a sense of.
I know looking at, and I'm not sure exactly what the method will be for their community engagement, but looking at some of their other things that they've done, that's been some of, we'll send the survey out kind of with what's the public's desire for more of. So those will, I'm assuming there'll be some sort of options, and that I'll make sure we communicate that to them, but I think options for the public to provide some feedback and items like that. So.
And then the other piece is, again, I mentioned that we're at Pipestone, well, through the National Monument, they had a walking path about a mile, and walking along, you know, you're going through prairie area, reestablished, and they would have little markers, you know, with pictures, you know, telling you what those prairie flowers are, and we've got some of the same ones along the trail, whether it's by Riverside or out at Roberts or down by the trail along the river behind the dog park. There's prairie there, and I just think it really raises the awareness that this is a prairie. And I remember somebody complained once about the Riverside area, about all the weeds that are there. Well, you know, they're not weeds, and maybe some of that could be incorporated too. Raise the awareness and the appreciation too. It's beautiful down there now. That's it.
Thanks, Ian. Chad?
I don't have anything more tonight.
You're still on the edge from the report?
Yep.
Okay. Matt?
Couple things, just a reminder that our next meeting on August 14th is at 4 o'clock instead of 5:30. I think there's been some advertising, but the city and staff and council included did receive official invite to the party in the park. This is kind of new initiative to help out with the business in McLeod County, and so that's this Saturday in Library Square from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And then I know I did receive an email yesterday or today regarding our application. I think we're ready to send out the application, and the chamber is for the pheasants. The governor's opener, I think we received over 1,400 acres so far of people that have committed to open that up for them, and hasn't been a lot of financial, but we anticipate if we were to get it, that would come in no problem, along with hunters and dogs. But I think we've had a pretty good commitment to date to put in the application, hopefully. And the main purpose for that is just to make it as more attractive as possible. So I think that's due by the end of this month. I think the deadline was maybe Friday to try to get all that stuff in so we could get that out the door, so.
Send it in without.
I would still do it because at the very least, we'll have that information on file, so. That's it for me.
Thanks, Matt. Mary mentioned Orange Spectacular. One of the neat things that they do is a tractor parade, and they actually go around the old folks' homes. And I guess it's, as I hear from staff out there, it's pretty neat to see the elderly farmers that, see their tractors go by. So I think that's kind of neat that they do that for us. The 6th, you mentioned actually having a pulled pork barbecue contest sponsored by the mayor. So, so there'll be pulled pork that night down there. So we're having a contest.
Where's that at?
Music in the park.
So what, 5:30?
Yeah, 5:30, 6 o'clock, I think, whenever.
You'll be at 9.
Yeah. Just had somebody come up and talk to me about, I know, Steve, you had brochures for bike safety and rules of the road for bikes, and so just had somebody come up to me and ask me if I could mention that he would like to see maybe a little more people obeying the rules of the road when they're riding bikes. So here had a couple near misses by bikes shooting across intersections, where they should be stopping. So I told him I'd bring that up. Had an airport commission meeting the other night, and I just wanted to pass on that the commission's very happy that the council passed all their updates that they're going to do out there. So just they wanted me to thank the council for that. So besides that, that's it for me. So adjournment's in order.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Chad, second by Mary to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?